Imagine waking up one morning with a strange, unsettling feeling, a quiet suspicion that the life you've been living might not actually be your own. You go about your day, but something feels off. Every decision you make, every belief you hold, even the dreams that push you forward, suddenly you start to wonder, did these things really come from you? Or have you been shaped, molded, and quietly programmed by the world around you, without ever realizing it? Pause for a moment and really think about it. How much of your identity is truly yours? How much of your personality, your ambitions, your fears, and your desires are a reflection of your authentic self, and how much are just a carefully constructed mask pieced together from the expectations of your family, your culture, your friends, and the endless stream of messages you absorb every day? If you're honest, have you ever felt like you're just playing a role, following a script that someone else wrote for you? Maybe you've caught yourself acting a certain way just to fit in, or saying things you don't really believe because it's what's expected. Maybe you've even wondered, late at night, who you would be if all those outside influences suddenly disappeared. This isn't just a passing thought. For many people, it's a quiet, persistent ache, a sense that something is missing, that there's a deeper, truer version of themselves waiting to be discovered. But what does it actually mean to find yourself? Is it just about becoming more self-aware? Or is there something much deeper, something more transformative that most people never even get close to? Today, we're going to explore one of the most profound and challenging ideas in all of psychology, a concept that has the power to completely shift the way you see yourself and the way you move through the world. It's an idea that comes from Carl Gustav Jung, a pioneer who dared to look beyond the surface of the mind and into the vast, mysterious depths of the unconscious. Jung believed that life doesn't truly begin until you find yourself, but he also warned that most people never do. Why? Because the forces that shape our identities are often invisible, operating beneath the surface, quietly steering our choices and shaping our beliefs without us ever noticing. Let's be honest, most of us go through life on autopilot. We're born into a world that immediately starts telling us who we are. We're given names, roles, and labels before we can even speak. We're taught what's acceptable and what's not, what's rewarded and what's punished. We learn, often without realizing it, to hide the parts of ourselves that don't fit the mold. Maybe you were told to be realistic, to stop being so sensitive, or that certain dreams were impractical. Over time, you start to tuck those parts of yourself away, building a mask that you show to the world. A mask that Jung called the persona. The persona is useful. It helps us navigate society, build relationships, and gain acceptance. But here's the problem. The more we identify with this mask, the more we lose touch with who we really are. We start to believe that the mask is all there is, forgetting that beneath it lies something much deeper, much more real. And then there's the other side, the shadow. If the persona is what we show the world, the shadow is what we hide from it. It's made up of everything we've rejected or suppressed within ourselves, our fears, our vulnerabilities, our unspoken desires, and even our hidden strengths. But the shadow doesn't just disappear because we ignore it. It lingers beneath the surface, influencing our thoughts, our behaviors, and our emotional reactions in ways we don't even realize. Have you ever found yourself intensely disliking someone, without really knowing why? Or been triggered by certain behaviors in others that provoke a strong, almost irrational reaction? Jung believed that when we're disturbed by qualities in other people, it's often because those very qualities exist within us, hidden in our own shadow. So what if the parts of yourself you've spent years hiding or denying are actually the missing pieces of your wholeness? What if the key to true self-discovery isn't about eliminating the shadow, but about integrating it, facing what you've denied, and unlocking a source of personal power, authenticity, and freedom that you never knew existed? This is where the real journey begins. But it's not an easy path. Most people never take it. They stay trapped within a version of themselves that was shaped by others, living according to expectations, seeking validation from the outside world, and believing that happiness comes from approval, success, or fitting in. Yet deep down, there's a quiet unrest, a sense that something is missing, that life is passing by without ever really being lived. Jung's insight was radical. True life begins when you stop running from yourself. But before you can find yourself, you have to understand what's been keeping you lost. From the moment we enter the world, we're conditioned, subtly, gradually, and almost invisibly. We adapt, we conform, and over time, we learn to suppress the parts of ourselves that don't align with what's expected. We build a mask, and then we forget that we're wearing it. But here's the truth. You don't have to keep living this way. You don't have to be a stranger to yourself, following a script that was written by someone else. You have the power to break free, to shed the layers of conditioning and fear, and to step into the fullness of who you are, unafraid and unapologetic. In this video, we're going to uncover the hidden forces that shape your identity, reveal why most people never truly find themselves, and show you how to break free. We'll explore the masks you wear, the shadows you hide, and the ancient patterns buried deep in your psyche that hold the key to your greatest potential. And at the end, we'll confront the most powerful realization of all, one that has the potential to change not just the way you see yourself, but the very way you engage with the world. So if you've ever wondered who you really are, if you've ever felt that quiet ache for something more, stay with me, because what you're about to discover might just change your life forever. Have you ever stopped to wonder how much of your daily life is actually a performance? Most people never question it. From the moment you step outside your door, or even before you're slipping into a role, sometimes without even realizing it, you smile when you're supposed to, nod along with conversations you don't care about, and say the right things to keep the peace. But who decided what's right for you in the first place? Carl Jung called this social mask the persona. It's the face you show to the world, carefully crafted to fit in, to be accepted, to avoid conflict or rejection. Maybe you're the responsible one at work, the easygoing friend in your group, or the dutiful child at home. Each role comes with its own set of expectations, and over time, those expectations start to feel like your entire identity. The lines between who you really are and who you're supposed to be begin to blur. But here's the unsettling truth. The more you invest in this mask, the more distant you become from your authentic self. It's like living in a house with all the windows covered. Safe from judgment, maybe, but cut off from the light. You start to forget what it feels like to act on your own desires, to speak your mind without filtering every word, to simply exist without worrying about how you'll be perceived. Think back to a time when you wanted to say or do something but held back because you were afraid of what others might think. Maybe you laughed at a joke you didn't find funny, or agreed with an opinion you secretly disagreed with. These moments might seem small, but over the years, they add up. Each time you silence your true self, the mask grows thicker, and the real you fades further into the background. What's even more surprising is how invisible this process can be. Most people don't even realize they're wearing a mask. They go through life believing that their persona is their true self, never questioning where their beliefs, habits, or even their dreams really come from. It's only when something shakes their world, a crisis, a loss, or a sudden moment of clarity, that they start to see the cracks in the facade. But why do we do this? Why do we trade authenticity for acceptance? The answer is simple: survival. From a young age, we learn that fitting in keeps us safe. We're rewarded for following the rules, for being agreeable, for not making waves. Over time, the fear of rejection becomes so powerful that we'd rather hide our true selves than risk standing out. Yet, deep down, there's always a part of us that knows the truth. A quiet voice that whispers, "This isn't really me." It's the part that feels restless when you're alone, that aches for something more, that dreams of a life where you don't have to pretend. Most people ignore that voice, pushing it down and hoping it will go away. But it never does. And here's where things get interesting. Because the mask isn't just about hiding your flaws or weaknesses. It also hides your strengths, your passions, and your unique perspective on the world. The very things that make you who you are get buried under layers of shoulds and musts. You become a stranger to yourself, living a life that looks good on the outside but feels empty on the inside. But that's not the whole story. Because behind every mask, there's a hidden world waiting to be discovered. And the moment you start to question the persona you've built, you open the door to a deeper, more authentic existence. The next step? Facing the parts of yourself you've tried to keep in the dark, the shadow within. And what you'll find there might just change everything you thought you knew about yourself. If the mask is what you show the world, the shadow is what you hide, even from yourself. It's the collection of thoughts, feelings, and impulses you've been taught to reject, deny, or simply ignore. But here's the twist. Just because you push something into the shadows doesn't mean it disappears. In fact, the more you try to bury these parts of yourself, the more power they gain over your life. Think about the last time you felt an intense reaction to someone else. Maybe anger, jealousy, or even a strange sense of admiration you couldn't explain. Jung believed that these moments are clues. They're signals from your shadow, pointing to the parts of yourself you've tried to keep hidden. It's like your unconscious mind is holding up a mirror, daring you to look closer. The shadow isn't just made up of your so-called bad traits. Sure, it holds your fears, your insecurities, and your unspoken desires, but it also contains your untapped strengths, your creativity, and the raw energy you need to grow. The problem is, most people are so afraid of what they might find in the dark that they never even try to look. They keep running, distracting themselves with work, entertainment, or endless scrolling, anything to avoid facing what's really inside. But the shadow doesn't go away just because you ignore it. Instead, it shows up in your life in unexpected ways. Maybe you sabotage your own success, lash out at people you care about, or find yourself stuck in the same patterns over and over again. These aren't just random mistakes. They're the shadow at work, trying to get your attention. Here's where things get even more interesting. The qualities you dislike most in others are often the very things you refuse to see in yourself. Ever notice how certain people just get under your skin for no clear reason? That's projection. Your shadow using the outside world as a canvas for your own hidden traits. It's uncomfortable, but it's also a powerful opportunity. Because every time you feel triggered, you're being handed a map to the parts of yourself that need healing. But what if, instead of running from your shadow, you turned to face it? What if you saw it not as your enemy, but as a guide? Jung's great insight was that true growth doesn't come from pretending to be perfect. It comes from integrating the shadow, acknowledging your flaws, your fears, and your hidden desires, and accepting them as part of your whole self. When you do this, you unlock a level of authenticity and freedom that most people never experience. Imagine living without the constant fear of being found out. Imagine speaking your truth, making choices that actually reflect who you are, and feeling at home in your own skin. That's the power of embracing your shadow. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you've lost along the way. But facing the shadow is just the beginning. Because once you start to see what's really been driving you, you can finally break free from the invisible scripts that have shaped your life. And that's when the real transformation begins. But why is it so hard to break out of these old patterns? What keeps us trapped in roles and routines that don't fit? The answer lies in the subtle, powerful force of conditioning, a force that starts shaping us from the very first moments of our lives. And what happens when you finally see it for what it is might just shock you. From the moment you take your first breath, the world begins to shape you. Before you even know who you are, you're handed a name, a family, a culture, and a set of rules about how to behave. You're praised for being good, scolded for stepping out of line, and taught, sometimes without a single word, what's acceptable and what's not. This is the invisible force of conditioning, and it's more powerful than most people ever realize. Think back to your earliest memories. Maybe you remember being told to act your age, to stop crying, or to be realistic. Maybe you learned that certain dreams were silly, that some emotions were too much, or that your natural curiosity was a problem to be managed. Each of these moments leaves a mark. Over time, you start to edit yourself, hiding the parts that don't fit the script you've been given. You learn to play it safe, to avoid rocking the boat, to keep your true thoughts and feelings locked away where no one can judge them. But here's the catch. The more you conform, the more you lose touch with your real self. You become an expert at reading the room, at saying what people want to hear, at blending in. On the outside, you might look like you have it all together, but inside there's a growing sense of emptiness, a quiet voice that wonders, is this really all there is? Most people never question this process. They go through life following the path that was laid out for them. believing that happiness comes from doing what's expected. They chase approval, success, and belonging, hoping that if they just try hard enough, the nagging sense of not enough will finally disappear. But it never does, because no amount of external validation can fill the space left by a neglected soul. What's even more surprising is how subtle this conditioning can be. It's not always about big, dramatic moments. Sometimes it's just a look, a sigh, or a passing comment that makes you shrink a little bit inside. Over the years, these small signals add up, teaching you to hide your quirks, your passions, and your pain. You start to believe that your worth depends on how well you fit the mold, and you forget that you ever had a choice. But here's the truth. You did have a choice. You still do. The script you've been following isn't set in stone. The roles you've been playing aren't the whole story. The real you, the one who existed before the world told you who to be, is still there, waiting to be rediscovered. So why do so many people stay trapped? Because breaking free means facing discomfort. It means questioning beliefs you've held for years, challenging the fears that have kept you safe, and confronting the inner conflicts that have shaped your life. It's easier to stay distracted, to keep busy, to avoid the silence where the truth might finally catch up with you. But what if you stopped running? What if you allowed yourself to sit with the discomfort, to listen to the questions that linger beneath the surface? What if you dared to imagine a life that wasn't defined by other people's expectations? This is where the journey of individuation begins, the process of becoming your most authentic self. It's not about rebellion for the sake of it, or about rejecting everything you've ever known. It's about peeling back the layers of conditioning, one by one, until you finally see the person you were always meant to be. But this journey isn't easy. Most people turn back at the first sign of resistance. They tell themselves it's too late, or too risky, or that they're just not that kind of person. But the truth is, the only thing standing between you and your true self is the willingness to look within. And what happens when you finally take that first step? When you stop living by someone else's script and start writing your own? That's when the real transformation begins. Because the journey to authenticity isn't just about breaking free, it's about discovering a power within you that you never knew existed. And as you'll see in the next part, this journey isn't just personal. It's connected to something much bigger. Ancient patterns and universal forces that have been shaping human lives for generations. What are these hidden influences, and how do they guide your every move? The answer might surprise you. So what does it actually mean to find yourself? For most people, the idea sounds simple: just figure out what you like, what you believe, and what you want, right? But the truth is, the journey to your authentic self is far more challenging and far more rewarding than most ever imagine. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong path of integrating every part of who you are, both the light and the dark, into a whole and unique identity. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Most people never even start this journey. Why? Because individuation demands that you face the parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. It means looking honestly at your fears, your contradictions, and the stories you tell yourself to feel safe. It means questioning the beliefs you inherited from your family, your culture, and your past, and asking whether they truly belong to you. Think about how often we avoid silence, how quickly we reach for our phones, turn on the TV, or fill our schedules to the brim, anything to keep from sitting alone with our thoughts. This constant distraction isn't just a habit, it's a defense mechanism. It keeps us from hearing the quiet voice inside that asks the hard questions. Is this really who I am? What am I running from? What do I truly want? Facing yourself is uncomfortable, and that's exactly why most people stop before they even begin. It's easier to stay busy, to keep up appearances, to follow the familiar path, even if it leads to a life that feels hollow. But here's the paradox. The discomfort you're avoiding is actually the doorway to your freedom. The very things you fear, your doubts, your wounds, your hidden desires, are the keys to unlocking your true self. Jung believed that the unconscious mind is always speaking to us, sending messages through dreams, instincts, and even the patterns that repeat in our lives. But most of us have learned to ignore these signals, dismissing them as random or unimportant. Yet, if you start to pay attention, you'll notice that your deepest wounds often shape your choices, your suppressed desires influence your behavior, and the things you fear most hold the greatest lessons. Take, for example, the fear of rejection. So many people go through life terrified of being judged or abandoned, so they hide their true thoughts, avoid conflict, and seek approval at any cost. But where does this fear really come from? Is it about the opinions of others? Or is it rooted in an old wound, a moment from childhood when you felt unseen or unworthy? Jung would say that this fear is a shadow aspect of the self, a part that hasn't been fully acknowledged. And until you bring it into the light, it will keep controlling your actions from behind the scenes. But here's the breakthrough. When you finally face these hidden parts of yourself, they lose their power over you. Imagine what it would feel like to live without the constant fear of judgment, to speak your truth without hesitation, to make decisions based on what resonates deeply within you, not what others expect. That's the power of individuation. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more of who you truly are. So how do you begin? It starts with awareness. The moment you start to question your thoughts, your reactions, and your deeply held beliefs, you're already taking the first steps toward transformation. The moment you stop running from discomfort and start facing it with curiosity, you begin to reclaim your true self. But individuation isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing journey, an unfolding of deeper and deeper layers of truth. Each time you peel back a layer, you discover more of your authentic self and more of the power, creativity, and freedom that come with it. And here's where the journey takes an even more fascinating turn. Because as you dig deeper, you'll find that your personal story is connected to something much larger, universal patterns and ancient forces that have shaped human lives for generations. These are the archetypes, the hidden blueprints of the psyche, and they're at work in your life whether you realize it or not. So what are these archetypes, and how do they influence your journey to self-discovery? The answer is more mysterious and more powerful than you might think. Beneath the surface of your everyday thoughts and feelings, there's a hidden world, a vast, ancient landscape that shapes your identity in ways you might never have imagined. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, a deep layer of the mind that connects you to every human who has ever lived. Within this mysterious realm live the archetypes, universal patterns, and symbols that have guided human behavior for thousands of years. You might not realize it, but these archetypes are at work in your life right now. They're the invisible blueprints behind your dreams, your fears, your relationships, and even the stories you're drawn to. Think about the tales that have been told across cultures and generations: the hero's journey, the wise mentor, the innocent child, the shadowy villain. These aren't just characters in books or movies, they're living forces inside you, shaping the way you see yourself and the world. Take the hero archetype, for example. It's the part of you that longs for purpose, that feels called to something greater, that wants to overcome obstacles and become the best version of yourself. But the hero never travels alone. Always lurking nearby is the shadow, the part of you that holds your fears, your doubts, and the challenges you must face to grow. In every myth, the hero must confront the shadow, often in the form of a monster, an enemy, or a seemingly impossible trial. Only by facing this darkness can the hero truly evolve. But archetypes go far beyond just the hero and the shadow. Jung believed that within every man exists a hidden feminine side, the anima, and within every woman a hidden masculine side, the animus. These aren't about gender in the physical sense, but about the balance of energies within you. The anima represents intuition, emotion, and creativity. The animus stands for logic, structure, and assertiveness. When these forces are in harmony, you feel whole. When they're out of balance, inner conflict arises. Maybe you struggle to express your feelings, or you find it hard to stand up for yourself. What's truly fascinating is how these archetypes show up in your daily life, often without you even noticing. Maybe you find yourself drawn to certain people, careers, or experiences, not realizing that you're following an ancient script written deep within your psyche. Or perhaps you keep repeating the same patterns, falling for the same type of partner, facing the same challenges at work, or struggling with the same fears without understanding why. These aren't just coincidences, they're the archetypes at play, guiding your journey from behind the scenes. But here's the twist. You're not just a passive character in this story. The more you become aware of these archetypes, the more power you have to shape your own destiny. You can choose to step into the role of the hero, to face your shadow, to embrace both your anima and animus, and to write a new chapter for yourself. Jung believed that true individuation, the process of becoming your authentic self, means integrating all these forces, not just the ones you find comfortable or familiar. So what does this mean for your journey of self-discovery? It means that you're never alone. You're part of a much larger story, one that's been unfolding for centuries. The challenges you face, the dreams you chase, the conflicts you wrestle with, they're all part of a universal dance, a pattern that connects you to every human who has ever searched for meaning. But there's one more illusion that keeps most people trapped. A belief so deeply ingrained that it shapes everything you do, often without you even realizing it. It's the illusion of a fixed, unchanging self. And what happens when you finally see through this illusion? The answer might just change your life forever. Most people move through life convinced that their identity is solid, unchanging, a single self that persists from childhood to old age. You might think you know who you are, defined by your name, your job, your memories, and your personality. But what if this sense of self is just another mask, another story you've been telling yourself all along? Carl Jung, along with many great thinkers and mystics, believed that the self is not a fixed entity. Instead, it's fluid, ever-shifting, and far more expansive than you've ever been led to believe. The version of you that you identify with right now, your habits, your fears, your dreams, is only a fragment of something much larger. It's like looking at a single wave and thinking you've seen the whole ocean. This illusion of a permanent self is powerful. It's the ego's way of keeping you safe, drawing boundaries between who I am and who I am not. The ego builds walls, defines roles, and clings to familiar patterns, all in the name of security. But in doing so, it also limits your growth. It keeps you stuck in old stories, afraid to step into the unknown, convinced that change is dangerous or impossible. But what if you could see beyond the ego's illusions? What if you realized that you are not just a collection of labels, memories, and roles, but a vast interconnected field of consciousness carrying within you the wisdom of generations, the depth of the unconscious, and the potential for transformation that goes far beyond anything you've imagined? This realization is both liberating and terrifying. It means that everything you've believed about yourself, your limitations, your fears, even your greatest achievements, is only part of the story. The self you've been seeking has always been within you, waiting to be remembered. But to access it, you have to be willing to let go of the old identities that have kept you safe but small. So how do you step beyond the illusion of self? It starts with courage, the courage to question everything you think you know about who you are. It means embracing the unknown, letting go of rigid labels, and listening to the deeper messages of your unconscious mind. Your dreams, your instincts, your sudden flashes of insight, these are not random. They are the voice of the true self, guiding you toward wholeness. The more you tune in, the more you begin to notice patterns, synchronicities, and signs that point you toward your real path. You start to see that life is not about clinging to a single identity, but about evolving, growing, and unfolding into deeper layers of truth. But here's the ultimate revelation. You were never truly lost. The self you've been searching for has always been here, quietly waiting beneath the surface of your everyday life. The only question is, are you willing to let go of the illusion and step into the fullness of who you really are? Because in the final stage of this journey, you'll discover that finding yourself isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been. And the steps you take next could change not just your life, but the very way you experience reality itself. So if the self you've been living isn't the whole story, how do you finally break free? How do you move beyond the masks, the shadows, the old scripts, and step into the life that's truly yours? The answer isn't about chasing some perfect version of yourself or forcing a dramatic transformation overnight. It's about small, courageous steps, each one peeling back another layer of illusion and bringing you closer to your authentic core. First, embrace the unknown. Most people fear uncertainty, clinging to what's familiar even when it no longer fits. But the unknown is where growth happens. When you stop resisting the mysteries within you and lean into them with curiosity, you open yourself to new possibilities. Instead of asking, "Who am I supposed to be?" try asking, "What else could I become?" Let yourself be surprised by what you find. Second, release your attachment to labels. You are not just your job, your past, or your personality. Every label you've worn, whether it's the responsible one, the outsider, or the achiever, is just a temporary role, not your true identity. When you let go of these rigid definitions, you create space for something greater to emerge. You become free to explore, to change, to grow in ways you never imagined. Third, listen to your unconscious, your dreams, your instincts, your sudden flashes of insight. These are messages from the deeper self, guiding you toward wholeness. Start paying attention to the patterns in your life, the emotions that keep resurfacing, the moments that make you feel most alive. These are clues, pointing you toward the parts of yourself that are ready to be integrated. Fourth, surrender to the process. Finding yourself isn't a destination you reach and then forget about. It's an ongoing journey, an unfolding of deeper and deeper layers of truth. Some days you'll feel lost. Other days you'll feel more alive than ever. The key is to keep moving forward, to stay open, and to trust that every step, no matter how small, is bringing you closer to your authentic self. And finally, remember that you're not alone. Every person who's ever searched for meaning, questioned their path, or longed for something more has walked this road before you. The challenges you face, the doubts you wrestle with, the breakthroughs you experience, they're all part of a universal journey, one that connects you to the wisdom of generations. So, are you ready to meet the real you? Are you willing to let go of the old stories, to face your shadow, to embrace the unknown, and to step into the fullness of your being? Because the moment you do, everything changes. Life becomes richer, deeper, and more meaningful. You stop living as a fragment and start living as a whole. But there's one final realization, one last powerful truth that ties everything together. And it's this: the self you've been seeking has always been within you, quietly waiting to be remembered. The only question left is, will you answer the call? In the conclusion, we'll bring all these insights together and leave you with a challenge that could transform not just how you see yourself, but how you live every single day. You've just traveled through the hidden corridors of your own mind, unmasking the persona, confronting the shadow, breaking free from the invisible chains of conditioning, and glimpsing the ancient archetypes that shape your every move. You've seen how the illusion of a fixed self can keep you trapped, and you've learned that the journey to authenticity isn't about becoming someone new, but about remembering who you've always been. Most people will never take this journey. They'll keep living behind their masks, following scripts written by others, and mistaking comfort for fulfillment. But you don't have to be one of them. You now know that the power to change your life doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the courage to look within, to face what you've hidden, and to embrace every part of yourself, even the ones you once feared. The truth is, you are far more than the sum of your experiences, your roles, or your past mistakes. You are a living, evolving mystery, capable of growth, transformation, and a depth of self-understanding that most people never even imagine. The journey isn't always easy. There will be moments of doubt, discomfort, and even fear. But every step you take toward your authentic self is a step toward a life that is richer, more meaningful, and truly your own. So here's the challenge. Don't let this just be another video you watch and forget. Take a moment right now to sit with the questions that have surfaced. What parts of yourself have you been hiding? What old stories are you ready to let go of? What would it look like to live, even for a day, as the most honest, unapologetic version of yourself? Remember, the self you've been seeking isn't out there somewhere. It's been within you all along, quietly waiting for you to notice. The only thing left is to answer the call to step forward, not as a fragment, but as the whole, limitless being you were always meant to become. Because life doesn't truly begin until you find yourself, and now you know the way. Thanks for watching. If this journey resonated with you, share your thoughts below. Your story might be the spark that helps someone else begin their own.